Good morning and welcome to Veterans Heartbeat on the Pulse of the Veteran, where we discuss issues of health, happiness, opportunity, and well-being of interest to the veteran community, their families, and the community who honors them.
Good morning and welcome to another episode of Veterans Heartbeat, brought to you by River, the Rural Institute for Veterans Education and Research. My name is Jason Zencraft. My co-host Ed Lisofsky is here with me, and he is the Executive Director of River. We welcome you to a weekly wide-ranging discussion of issues, events, opportunities, and needs in our veteran community. Morning, Ed. How you doing?
Morning, Jason.
We'd also like to thank our sponsor, Farside Signs. They create amazing-looking vehicle graphics that will drive traffic to your business. Follow them on the web, Instagram, and Facebook, or just stop on by.
Good morning. This morning we have Dr. Frank Yersick, who our listeners know from past episodes, coming to us via phone in Chicago, where he is participating in helping veterans with a veteran stand down. The reason that I brought him back on is for the past year he's been functioning as the president of River. He took over that position when I had my third heart attack, and between the two of us, we've been trying to figure out how to service the veterans in Montana. Good morning, Frank. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Ed. How are you? I'm, like you mentioned, here at the stand down, and there's probably 1,000 vets coming through here today getting ready for the winter. And they're receiving care. We're doing acutherapy, stuff that I taught through River, using either the hand or the auricular system, and teaching the veterans how to take care of themselves naturally, without drugs or with less drugs. So, doing the work, continuing the mission continues, huh?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. You got together with a bunch of the academic advisors for River that have been around for several years, like Dr. Janet McCord. Unfortunately, she's not available this morning to talk. But unbeknownst to me, you guys had decided that it was time to move the program from neutral back into gear again. Your announcement is that the River Education Program is coming, is being sold to a new entity that you and a group of academics have decided to form and move the education piece forward. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. It's very exciting because this gives us new life and it gives us a broader dimension. So
you intend on reopening the River School through a separate name. Can you tell us what the name of the new school is going to be?
St. George. St. George is historically the name of this knight on horseback who is slaying the dragon, which dragons haunt us all from time to time. And so we're going to be able to use education to deal effectively, naturally, with less drug dependence and other crutches to deal with our dragons.
And the focus of the school is going to be on vocational and technical, is that correct?
Yes, it is, exactly. And again, we've got a lot of leverage because we're going to be using state-of-the-art technology to be able to capture that information, to be able to test people's knowledge, to help them learn it. Very exciting.
Well, I understand that you are working on getting an agreement to where you'll be working with a major university in Wisconsin. Is that true?
Yes. Marion College has been around a long time. They got a great reputation. They're up in Fond du Lac. But they, as well as many schools, are also reaching out to do off-campus work and use, like you say, technology and electronics to be able to do that.
Well,
and they're very experienced in it. So it's great to be able to plug in someone who's already done it.
One of the board members, Maureen, is the compliance officer for Marian University. Do you feel that that's going to be a help to the keeping within the compliance issues the river faced before?
Yeah, that's valuable assistance because she's an expert, and that's the whole idea, is to bring experts in that can do their job well and let us do what we do well, and let us do it with our face-to-face experience with veterans.
Sounds like you're getting really busy behind you. I think we need to let you get going back to it. And I appreciate the quick interview this morning.
My pleasure. I'm here, as you know, practically 24/7 to help out on this. I got your back, Ed. That's the bottom line.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time this morning. I know you're busy, and go and take care of the vets. Well, in continuing with Dr. Yersik's interview, I also have Maureen Carvan, who will be serving on the board of St. George, on the phone with us. Good morning, Maureen. How are you doing this morning?
Good morning, Ed. I'm doing fine. Hope you are as well.
Yeah. It's another nice day in the neighborhood. We're getting, unfortunately, our snow is leaving us this morning, but
I think it's coming our way, though.
So, Maureen, you have a very interesting background that Frank and I were talking about. You're the compliance officer for Marian University. Is that correct?
That's essentially correct, yes.
So you're the one that cracks the whip and makes sure that everybody's following the rules.
That is definitely what I do.
Well, how did you get such a position? I mean, that must take a lot of knowledge to do.
I've been in higher education for over 30 years, and along the way, I've always been very interested in how the entire enterprise works. So yes, I've gained a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, both hard knocks and book knowledge, and I'm also really, really, really fascinated with how do you design systems so that they give you the results that you want. And so those two things coming together, plus some policy experience in two departments of education, state departments of education, turned me into what can only be called a policy wonk with a scientific bent.
Well, let's talk about this a little bit here, okay?
Okay.
You were introduced to the River program. You understand that the policies got us in trouble. Is that one of the reasons that you jumped on to St. George?
It is absolutely one of the reasons that I jumped onto St. George. I recognized, the value of what River was trying to do, and know that given the right, right support, St. George will be able to avoid some of those policy mistakes that were made.
When you were approached about River being, the education piece being bought out by St. George, what was your initial reaction to that?
Well, my initial reaction to that was I thought that it would be a good outcome for River, because the alternative was to basically go back and start over from scratch, which would have been very difficult. I think that you have the opportunity to bring in expertise in how to run in multiple ways, how to design and run an effective educational program that, and from my perspective, has all of the structures and supports that it needs to do the work that it really wants to do. I know that you've discovered all these different things along the way in pulling River together, which was a work of the heart and your hands. And this is bringing a little bit more expert knowledge to bear to make sure that that work can go forward.
Well, also, it looks like we're going to be working, you guys will be working with St. George, with Marian University, and I've researched the higher education programs out there, and currently, right around half of the people that start a college degree end up with a college degree at the end. Is that what you're finding?
Yes. So roughly, it depends. If you're looking at public institutions, they actually have a much lower rate, statistically speaking, than private institutions in both retaining their students and assuring that they end up with a degree in hand when they walk out the door. Some of that is scale. Privates tend to be smaller. They tend to have a mission that focuses on supporting people through. It can take, and publics, while they have that same mission, their scale is so large and their systems are so large that sometimes people really do walk away because it's too complicated and too complex. Many of them then come to us, and we work with them as well to give them the educational experience that they need.
The interesting thing that you and Dr. Yersick are working together on is attempting to craft a program that allows students to come into a vocational program like St. George, learn a skill like carpentry, but at the same time walk away with business skills to where they can actually run a small company. In dealing with the intricacies, that's kind of a rare goal, is it not, in the vocational areas?
I think it is. I think that what I've seen in my experience in working with vocational and technical colleges and vocational and technical non-degree programs is that the emphasis is on developing a level of craft and skill so that the person who leaves the program can work for somebody else. That seems to be the unspoken assumption behind this. However, many people end up taking those skills and wanting to start their own businesses, their own enterprises. And they just, the better prepared they are to do that, the better prepared they are to actually successfully launch themselves, even if initially they do work for someone else to help them to sort of build up their capital, figure out what their business plans are, get connected within their field to actually have the support that they need to get out there and do their work, even doing some of the advanced, because in some fields there are advanced licenses and certifications and exams that they have to take in order to be able to run their own business. So I think the more you prepare somebody at the ground level to understand that this is part of the life that they've chosen, this is what they can do with the skills that they're learning, the better off that they are, no matter where they end up, even if they never do start their own business. So in this way, I think combining the business acumen and the leadership knowledge that people need with the technical and craft skill that they need in order to do their work is surprising to me that it isn't done more often.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute. The difference between a college degree and a vocational certificate. Can you explain the differences to our listeners?
Yes. Well, There are multiple levels. So first of all, there are many fields in which you can take a vocational training program that does not lead to an associate's or an undergraduate degree that's awarded by a college. That focuses really clearly on developing the technical skill under the guidance of someone who's a recognized master, to say that you have developed the level of mastery that allows you to enter into that particular craft or vocation, and that you can do that work. In some cases, that varies so much across the United States because we have state-level licensing systems. But at least you have the knowledge to be able to do that work on your own with minimal or no supervision, and sometimes even, as an independent operator. Technical colleges combine that focus on skill development, usually broaden that out from a focus on, say, like carpentry itself to, say, like a focus on carpentry within an enterprise like construction. And they also add in a slight preparation in the liberal arts, such as English, writing, critical thinking. They purposely develop and assess that curriculum. And that usually leads to an associate's degree that also allows you to be certified or licensed sometimes at a higher level than if you simply complete a vocational program. And they sometimes combine some business in that, but that's usually a student's choice. Undergraduate degrees are at colleges and universities. They are designed to develop a broad understanding of essentially how to think, how to use what you learn and put it into practice, how to do that across a number of fields and take a number of perspectives, and then seriously knuckle down and focus on a field. So in that case, usually there's no vocational skill or technique that you are honing. What you're developing is a broader capacity. If you have that skill, you can apply it better in a larger business sense. You can administer a business if you're doing a business degree. If you're doing a science or math or technology-based degree, you can take your technical skill and you can use that into, oh my God, there's so many different ways: instrumentation, research design, but informatics, use of data. And believe it or not, there are entire undergraduate degrees that really do focus in on how do you create and craft instruments that have to be, like programs like NASA. So there's a wide, undergraduate degrees are a wide open sort of approach, and they do require that you take a lot, that you demonstrate that you gain a lot of understanding and a very, very broad skill set. So that's all of them in a nutshell. I hope a nutshell.
So the undergraduate degree gives you a wider band thinking-wise, supposedly. But one of the things that I found fascinating in looking at the research is a 4-year degree, only 1 in 4 are using that degree that they got in the field that they studied in college.
Yes. Yeah, that's an interesting statistic because it implies that, say, for example, I also am one of those people. I am no longer teaching in a K-12 public school setting. My undergraduate degree was in secondary education science, math, and that degree is something that I did use. I actually didn't teach in secondary education. I taught in middle, which was something that was rising at the time. So even in my own case, my master's degree is both education, curriculum and instruction, and science education. My doctoral degree is also in designed change, but it was focused in the field of education. There's no way that the position that I hold right now was even conceived of at the time that I got my degree. But the education that I got at all of those different levels allowed me to recognize when change was coming, to adapt, to gather and learn new skills, and that's the value of the undergraduate degree. It allows you to adapt. It gives you flexibility. It helps you not to be able to respond to the very rapid changes in every field that's out there. So it's not surprising that people with history degrees, for example, don't necessarily get jobs as historians. But that history degree is invaluable in the world of business because it's research. And that's where most researchers in business enterprises come from, is out of the history field, but they wouldn't be counted as working in their field.
All right, so one of the unique features that I'm watching develop here between all of you brainiacs that are taking over St. George, and I've never seen this at a technical or vocational school before, is you're looking to create a track to where a student can come into the vocational technical school and gain the skills needed to complete their undergrad degree. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Is that unique?
That is unique because I think, again, there are some assumptions out there about who chooses to do what work. And those assumptions are essentially just not really based in how people think and what they're capable of. So the artistry, the technical skill, the thinking that's required to get a vocational degree, to really hone a craft, is no different from the thinking that it takes to actually do an undergraduate degree. The biggest difference is where you start. So undergraduate degrees, for example, tend to start broad, then go narrow. But if you come into a vocational program, you learn a great number of skills and processes and ways of being and knowing and even perspective taking that you can learn from this deep work that you can then take broad. There's no one right way to do this. So because we have a model of starting broad and then going deep, and it's a very old model, deeply ingrained in how we think about education, people just tend to follow it. And then when someone does choose to focus in on something that they find valuable and they want to do it in a deep way right away, then the assumption is that they can't go broad, and that's obviously not the case. Obviously they can, and they can take everything they learned in their vocational training and broaden that out. And so there's no reason to sort of assume that there's only one curriculum that can develop that broad thinking. So that's kind of what we're experimenting with, is what is the curriculum that you can pull together that develops that vocational skill and aptitude and craft, and also allows you to take that deep knowledge and broaden it out and apply it to other aspects, and in particular, an enterprise in which you want to start, your own business.
You brought up an interesting point, and we're winding down this morning, but the U.S. way of learning is very entrenched in rigorous regulations, and it doesn't allow for a lot of freedom. That's one reason St. George is going to provide non-accredited programming so that they can do that, but they're blending that with an accredited program. So that's exciting.
I think it is too, and I think ultimately, I'm also a peer reviewer for a national, regional accrediting body. So I will say this: there's more flexibility out there than we know in higher education. Much of the rigidity, the regulation-driven aspect of education really hits our local schools, and part of it is because we're we adopted a production model instead of a people-centered model of education a long time ago. We keep trying to break out of it and go back to the people-centered form of education, and I know we'll get there someday. But the production model has a real strong hold out there. But we're not producing things. We're not producing identical outcomes. When you're working with an education, it's human and developmental, and every single person walks out of there uniquely educated. There is no one, even in a degree program, who is a clone of any other person in their degree program. And so there's a great recognition of the need for that kind of diversity and creative thinking in designing education that's strongly supported out there now. And so I'm very happy to be part of an effort to demonstrate how it can be done.
Well, it was an exciting morning, and it's an exciting time that River is going to reopen its school, and it won't be too long, and we'll be announcing the first set of classes. I appreciate your time. Is there anything else you want to say this morning, Maureen?
I just want to reiterate again my thanks for the invitation to be part of this, and my deep respect for the work that has already gone forward in providing the kind of education that people needed and valued and will continue to need and will continue to value in service to building a whole life. And for that, you are to be given much credit. So thank you.
So thank you very much for listening to Veterans Heartbeat. We'd not be able to bring it to you without all the support of the listeners. And thank you again to Farside Signs for sponsoring the show. If you do need a unique vehicle design, swing on by and check them out. Also, thank you to our main sponsor, River. River has an array of services such as veterans-focused education, a vestibular disorder clinic, and now non-pharmaceutical treatments for pain, anxiety, and depression. Check them out on Facebook or on the web at riverofchange.org. Lastly, we'd like to show our appreciation to all of our veterans. Thank you for serving our country and keeping it safe.